family wealth management, there's a couple ways to approach it. For some individuals or families, it's very straightforward, where your assets are going to transfer to your kids via beneficiary designations on your IRAs, Roth IRAs, or individual accounts, as well as the homes that you can have transferred to them. That's very straightforward, helps you avoid probate, and accomplishes your goals. And so for a lot of individuals, that doesn't cost anything. We can accomplish all with forms, and that's the right way to go. And then for individuals who need a little bit more work or want more control over the assets, there's some different types of trusts.
And then if you have a will, does that also supersede, or is that
So the beneficiaries on the accounts, the IRAs, individual accounts, things like that will supersede the will. So your will could say, I want everything to go to Chris, but your beneficiaries say, I want everything to go to Ezra.
Right.
And they follow the beneficiaries. It just goes all to Ezra. And so when we do it that way, when we say, let's just do it with beneficiary designations, the will is mainly used for other gifts. Like, I want to give my jewelry to my daughter. I want to give my gun collection to my son. And then I want my son to be my personal representative. So then your son is the person in charge of taking care of your estate. And so that's where the will helps control those parts of it. But mainly, if you do it that way, it's just going to be the will choosing your personal rep and any gifts, and then the beneficiary designations getting the wealth to the next generation.
So most of our clients are using Schwab as their custodian. There's other custodians out there. Is all that set at that level?
Everything will be set at Schwab for the investment accounts or your 401k provider and things like that. And so the nice thing about the beneficiary designation is, one, you can do it online through Schwab, so you can go and review your beneficiaries. Two, you can change it at Schwab, and you can also change it as often as you want. So if all of a sudden in a year you decide, you know what, I don't want my kids to split it equally. This one son I've given way more money to now, kind of prepaying their inheritance. I'm going to update his percentage to be less and the other two to be more. Some individuals have their IRAs going to charities. One charity falls out of favor or they move churches. They can update that anytime they want. And so that's really convenient. It doesn't cost anything.
Yeah, so it sounds like for this, you don't need an attorney either. It's just something that you can is it something that you do or that Vector does on kind of behalf, or is it something that the client would have to go into their custodian?
This is something that Vector will help coordinate. So if we have the conversation with the client and determine that you probably don't need a complex trust or estate plan, and then we'll help with the beneficiary designations. And then we could also help get them in touch with an estate attorney who can draft a will, power of attorney, healthcare directive, guardian document to make sure that part of the estate plan is also honed in on, because that's very important too. So they work together, but it's less money to have an attorney draft a will, power of attorney, healthcare directive than it is for them to draft a trust and or another legal structure.
Yeah, so let's get into, I think you've identified a lot of reasons why, for most people, it doesn't make sense to even go down this road. What are the reasons that you might?
So that is probably, for a lot of clients, a very simple way to handle transferring wealth. A lot of times it'll come up where a trust is the next step above a will. The nice thing about the trust is, again, it avoids probate, which is important. Two, a trust allows you control of your assets from the grave, is kind of what I like to say. So it gives you the ability to write the language within this trust to say how these assets need to be used or when they can get access to them, and things like that.
I'm just thinking about like the layers, right? So you've got the beneficiary is actually the thing to look at, the indicator, rather than the will. But it seems like a trust, does that override the beneficiary?
No. So for the trust, if you still list your son and daughter 50% on an IRA, and your trust says son and daughter 25 at a charity, the other 50%, whatever your IRA says goes. And so a trust is really helpful for clients that have large after-tax investments. It's not as nice of a vehicle to go, I want my IRA to go into a trust and then go to these kids. It does create another level of complexity. For some individuals, it does make sense to do it that way. And for others, it makes sense to just, hey, everything in my IRA is just going to my kids outright. My trust is where I can control the other dollars, like a brokerage account, which could be moved into a trust account. my house, farmland, real estate outside of that, and that's where you can really control it in the trust. And so the beneficiaries, again, will always flow whatever way they are listed, and the trust will control whatever assets could fall within the trust.
Yeah, so you mentioned real estate. That seems like that would be a huge one to go into a trust, or that a trust is also can contain multiple asset types, whereas the beneficiary is really concerned with that kind of which is in the custodial brokerage, stocks, bonds, and the like.
Yeah, the beneficiaries are only concerned with the account that they're listed on. The trust is inclusive of your entire estate, essentially. And so a lot of times how the trust and will work is the will say anything that is not listed in my trust pours over into my trust. So if you forget to list an individual account to go to the trust, the will says, well, anything that's not coded with beneficiaries or anything goes into my trust. And so then the trust gets the whole estate at that point.
For someone or a company or a lawyer to administer this, and it may be, like you say, it's 20 years of time from when your kid is maybe 20 all the way to their 40. So somebody is sort of checking a box and saying, yes, it can be distributed. No, it can't be. These are the terms, and sort of seeing to that. So maybe talk a little bit. Is there a cost, and how do you choose a reputable trust administrator, if that's what they're called?
There are a couple of different types of trust that you can create. So the most common one that we see is a revocable living trust. So if I want to create a trust, I create a trust. It's basically an extension of me. I have control to revoke it. I can update it anytime I want to. I can change the beneficiaries. I can change the trustees. I can really change anything I want while I'm living. There's another trust called an irrevocable trust, meaning it's a trust that once it's established, you cannot change it unless the beneficiary says, yeah, I want this to be updated. A lot of times beneficiaries probably don't. And then there are dynasty trusts, which are meant for really long-term family wealth. There are charitable lead trusts or remainder trusts, and there are special needs trusts. So there's a wide range of trusts. The most common one, like I said, is a revocable living trust, which usually is just managed by the person while they're living. So very simple to do. It's just an extension of myself. If I was the trustee, I get to control it, tell it how I want it managed, and things like that. Irrevocable trust, usually you would have a separate party managing that, since it has to kind of be removed from you. And so that's where you could look into, okay, I have a brother who's an attorney. I really trust him. I think he's going to really follow the laws. Great. He can be the trustee. Or someone else that you really trust. Or given family and money, that can always mix things up. You may want to go with a corporate trustee. And so that's where One Schwab has a terrific corporate trustee that can handle that. And all they do is they read the trust and they follow the rules exactly how it is. And if you want money for college, you say, hey, I have this college expense. Here's the bill. The trust says this. Can I get it? Great. They review it and they give you that. Plus, there's other third-party trust providers outside of Schwab that we also have vetted and used that could be great for doing that. And so they do collect a fee for it, but if you want to remove all family from it and just keep it really straightforward to follow the trust, that's a terrific plan for it.
And then if it's your brother, maybe it's an attorney, but maybe not. It could just be someone that you trust.
Correct.
Trust.
Yep, they could be someone that you trust, and you could put in your trust that as the trustee each year, they could take X number of dollars out to pay themselves for having to deal with this, or if it's a trust that just you have to administer it when they pass away and then it just shuts down, they can pay their fee as handle it. There can be language written inside that, or there are rule of thumbs like you're allowed to pay yourself a percentage.
So the people involved in it get a copy of the trust. If it's a corporate like Schwab Custody Service, then they have it on their records and that. Certainly, I can imagine that Vector would keep a copy on our files on a given client. Where else are these documents stored?
Yeah, usually I recommend giving a copy to the trustee. Vector loves to get copies. We've been very helpful with clients when we've had to help handle the trust after someone's passing. The other place would be to keep it somewhere safe in your home, whether it's a safety deposit box or a safe. And then maybe giving, if you're comfortable, giving a trust to all the kids so they're aware, if you trust them and you want them to know, so they're aware, okay, I'm expected to receive this, or at their passing, I'm going to get a trust and I get X number of dollars a year so they can plan on it. But I'd say somewhere safe for sure, in a safe or safety deposit box. or a lot of people are creating their own folders now with, here's a list of my life insurance, all my Schwab accounts, so that whoever has to take care of the estate has a pile that they can find at their house easily.
Yeah, think about like a real estate deed, to a plot of land in Montana. There's some little office in Nowheresville, Montana that has some record that, John and Sue own this land. It sounds like that there isn't that. There isn't sort of a formal registry of trusts.
Correct. Yep. You don't file your trust with anyone. The attorney, your estate attorney, will have a copy of the trust. So if they know who your estate attorney is, they can reach out to him and say, I need a copy of the trust. But there isn't really a filing that you could go and look it up.
Anything else you're kind of thinking of here?
Yeah, I will just say that, like you said, a one size doesn't fit all. If you think you have a large net worth and you're like, I definitely need a trust, it's not always necessarily. It may just be still easy to do with beneficiary designations depending on where your estate is at. So I'd say it really is a case-by-case study, and then it's also sitting down and saying, what do you want for these dollars? Why is it important that your kids don't get access to them right away? Is it important to control them from the grave, so to speak? Is it important to avoid estate tax, even though it may give up your ability to access all of the money? And so that's why, one, having a financial advisor is really helpful, is because we can sit down and walk through that, and we have the knowledge of, okay, well, this trust may make sense, this strategy may make sense for you. Just saving you money on getting a complex estate plan when you really don't need one is one of the benefits too. And so I think our knowledge around this is really helpful. I do have to clarify that we are not estate attorneys, or this is not legal advice. We know the parameters of how these all work, and we could give you, okay, this is why I think you should do this. But at the end of the day, you do have to meet with a state attorney. They would be the ones to draft the documents, and they could either confirm, yeah, you're right, or actually, yeah, they're on the right path, but I think you should do this, and here's why. And so that's where we partner with the state attorneys. We use a handful of them that we trust and that do great work and usually think like-minded like us.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a great partnership to have. And then, again, why a financial advisor is really important to helping create these structures or ideas or plans so that your assets, as much as your assets that you want to preserve and go to your kids or charities, can be as effective as possible.
Well, great, Chris. This has been another excellent conversation with you. Always a wealth or font of knowledge here, and thanks for coming in, sharing.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Looking forward to coming back.
Yeah, we'll do it again. Absolutely.
Thanks.
Information presented is for educational purposes only and does not intend to make an offer or solicitation for the sale or purchase of any specific securities, investments, or investment strategies.